Good afternoon, this is Quintus Curtius, and welcome back to the podcast at Fortress of the Mind. And in this podcast, I'm going to be talking with my friend Ace Johnson, who is the co-founder of the knife manufacturing company Delta2Alpha.com. Great guy, good friend of mine. And he just came back from a long trip to Australia in which he visited some obscure places, among them the island of Tasmania, which, at least to Americans and Canadians, is obscure. I'm sure to Australians they might find that statement a little bit of, maybe a little bit disconcerting, but I don't think I've met anyone who's been to Tasmania except Ace. And he had some pretty interesting adventures out there, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about that. So it's going to be a little bit of a change of pace from the usual, maybe serious life-related subjects that I've been talking about lately here, and just kind of a let your hair down podcast. So let me get him on the horn here, and we can get started with that. So just bear with me as I do that. And good evening. This is Quintus Curtius coming back again at Fortress of the Mind podcast. And with me tonight I have Ace Johnson, the co-owner of Delta2Alpha, which is a knife manufacturing company and production company that we've featured on previous podcasts. And I'm fortunate to have him with me here again to do another discussion here on the podcast, because this guy is great. And I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. This knife company makes an incredible product, and it wants to find out more, their website, Delta2Alpha.com, and they can find out all about the products there, which are, made in Italy, fabricated there, and distributed in Canada and the United States, and people will get a better appreciation for what real workmanship is. Ace, are you with me there?
I sure am.
Oh, never better. Listen, I appreciate you being with us here tonight. I heard that you were telling me that you just came back from a long trip, right?
Yes, sir.
Where were you?
I was exploring Australia for a little bit more than the month of February.
Wow.
So I was in Brisbane, was mainly where I was based out of, but went out to the Gold Coast, Adelaide, Ballarat, and have you ever been?
I have not. I'm embarrassed to say that I have not been there. I would like to be there, and it's on my bucket list of places to visit. But no, it's never. My path has never crossed with it. So one of these days.
The hidden gem of Australia is Tasmania.
Wow.
If I go and do the trip over again, like I spent 4 days in Tasmania and Hobart,
Yeah.
like they have a museum there that's pretty much the layer of a James Bond villain.
Wow.
It's just wild. But if I go through and go over again, I probably would spend 2 weeks in Tasmania. It's just gorgeous.
It's because anyone who's even been there, no one ever talks about it. You never hear anybody talking about it, or
Exactly.
So what did you? Was it the natural beauty, the wildlife, the people? What was the deal?
So the natural beauty for sure. I don't think there's a straight or a flat stretch of road there more than a couple hundred yards.
Wow.
So you're like where I was staying. I stayed with an Airbnb and walked out, and we were kind of up on this peak, and I'm looking down on this bay with this beautiful view, and Tasmania kind of looks like New Zealand, but a little less like Mordor, like it's a little greener, like New Zealand crossed with Costa Rica.
Yeah.
And so I walk out the door of this place, and I'd never used Airbnb before. $40 a night.
Oh my God.
And I'm looking at this view, and I'm like, yeah, Airbnb is where it's at.
So,
for sure.
So why does it not get the tourist volume? Is it just so remote and so out of the way that people just don't get there, or is it a hit? Are the Australians keeping it a secret, or what?
Well, what was interesting was talking to the Australians is a lot of them haven't been there. They're like, oh yeah, it's Tassie. And it's like, yeah, but you should go there.
Right.
It's just gorgeous. I think they're starting to go through and get a little more tourism going. One of the things that was fascinating about Tasmania, because it is fairly remote, a lot of their meat, their wine, their produce, a lot of it is grown in Tasmania.
Oh
So
yeah,
like
you know, yeah.
they have soda companies there, and they do a lot of their consumables come from the island, which is really cool.
Well, you know, I would bet the lamb there must be incredible. I'm a big fan of lamb meat, and I know that New Zealand is well. I can't speak for Tasmania, but I know New Zealand has a big lamb husbandry industry, and I would assume that lamb is probably cheap there, right? Am I right or wrong about that?
Very, very, very cheap. And when you get out in the country, you quickly realize that there is 4 or 5 lamb for every person.
Oh, that's awesome. You know, man, you know, we talk about kebabs like you know, grilled meats in terms of whether you know, beef or lamb or whatever, you know, marinated lamb kebabs, you know, with vegetable, the best, absolutely the best. I mean, lamb is, at least for me anyway, I don't know what your feelings are about it, but I just love it. I just can't get enough of it.
There, yeah. So there's a big difference between lamb and an old sheep. There's a big difference,
Really?
and their lamb is great, but mutton is not for me. Yeah, the lamb is cheap. Like so, what I would pay $25 or $30 Canadian for there was like $10.
Oh
Uh,
man,
Yeah.
that's great.
The other thing that's really interesting about Australia is their price of cheese. As an example, you can get a brick of cheese the size of a block of C4 for like $8 Australian, which is about
Right.
$5 US. Where here cheese is very very expensive.
Well, you know what people, you know what, Ace, that the thing that people forget, at least Americans anyway, if they ever even think about Australia, but it's a continent. That's what people don't, it's a continent. And I've even talked to Australians that haven't even been to Perth, you know, like the cities on the western side of the country, uh, or is it eastern? I don't know I don't know frame of reference I would use, but I guess if you're I guess it's on the edge, that faces the Indian Ocean. I guess that would be I suppose that would be the western side. But in any case, there are people that haven't even been to different parts of Australia. Never mind, you know, islands off the coast of the country. But it's a continent. It's huge.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's only really populated. Like Canada's populated along the coast and along the U.S. border, and then up the other coast.
Right.
Australia's Australia's only populated around the exterior, and part of it is because in the middle there's resources, but it is a very austere environment,
Right.
very 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 inhospitable.
Well, it's good for filming chases for Mad Max movies, but that's that's about and mining, I think. But you might have difficulty doing much more than that. But you know, you and I have talked about this before. You're a big enthusiast of travel gear and survival gear, and obviously it goes without saying knives, things like that. Did you, uh, you know, after having read my articles about Robert Young Pelton's travel tips and survival gear trips, do you have any comments about that or new conclusions to share with us about your trip?
Absolutely. So I actually shared one of the articles on the travel advice. I actually shared it today. Both those articles are very, very well done. The equipment list is definitely geared towards people that are going well off the beaten path,
Right, right,
where a lot of my traveling has been in more built up, more urbanized places. So my gear list is a little bit different, but I went with a backpack that would have held, I don't know, 25 or 30 liters, and that's what I went to Australia with. And
wow,
so there's some things that are very very liberating about traveling that light. And I had like before that I was like most people, I was a suitcase traveler, but there's a big advantage to being able to like within an hour or less have everything you own packed and be moving.
yeah. And just interrupt you, Ace, just for the listeners who might not know, the articles that we're referring to is I published on my blog last week or about 10 days ago. Well, within the past 10 days, two articles where I featured some travel advice by the founder of Dangerous Places Travel, Robert Young Pelton. He's a author of the most world's most dangerous places, and I'm just kind of enthusiastic about stuff like that. I love traveling off the beaten pack, and I know that Ace does too. And we've talked about this. And as a knife guy, he's always looking for ways to to put himself in dangerous situations. Or is that an
Allegedly,
exaggeration?
allegedly.
So did you? So um, so what things about the equipment list did you agree with or disagree with? Did you have any comments on that?
Um, yeah. So my the way that I travel, and I've gone through and more or less not looked at what other people are doing and laid out my own way and just uh, kind of found what was going to work for me. I wasn't traveling in places where I was going to be in jungle and things like that, so it was more of an urbanized setting. Part of it, looking at clothing, is okay. Well, what few piece of clothing am I going to be able to get the most mileage out of? So if
Right,
I'm going to dinner, uh, what is it that I'm going to be able to wear to kind of be in place, so not be out of place, not look completely underdressed. Going through, there's a company called Ex Officio. They make absolutely great underwear. Uh, so I've took 2 pairs of underwear for a little over a month, and I know that sounds really
wow.
gross, but
No,
they're
if you
anti
wash them in the sink, you rotate them, and that's what I do. That's assume. What are they made out of? Is it what's the fabric?
some type of space aged material. It dries really really quickly. It's
Yeah, yeah.
antimicrobial, and like you're saying, a little bit of shampoo or whatever I get a hold of, wash them in the sink, and you could hang them up. Nice thing about Australia is because it's so hot, your clothes dry real quick.
Oh yeah, no, I do that all the time. I mean, that's why. I mean, when I'm in Brazil, I mean, I take only a couple pairs of socks and underwear, and you just rotate. You wash them in the shower or the sink. You dry them. You hang them up. That's it. I mean, that's the only way to. I mean,
Absolutely.
it goes without saying, I would think. Um,
Socks.
but
When I took 2 pairs of merino wool socks as an example for the same type of reason. When I was there, I heard some people talking about bamboo fibers, but didn't really try them out. And same thing, you can get a few days out of them because the antimicrobial, they're really good for wicking. And one of the one of the lessons anyone that's been in the military, the Boy Scouts knows, is you take care of your feet.
oh yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. And so now, were you doing a lot of hiking, or what sort of physical activity were you getting involved in?
Not a lot of hiking on purpose, but when I'm in other countries, I tend not to drive. I wound up driving in Australia, which is, well, we can talk about that later, but they're all backwards from you, which is
Right.
really, really disorienting. The
Yeah.
When I was in Tasmania, did a little bit of hiking over the Wineglass Bay, which is the Wineglass Bay is one of the top wilderness beaches in the world, in the
Right.
top 10, which means you have to hike to it. And
Right.
then I decided on my last night in Hobart, because I misunderstood how Airbnb worked. I thought that the last night was that you were staying, but the last night is when you're checking out. So I wound up not having a place and figured, well, whatever, how bad could this be? So I decided, yeah.
Right, right. No,
So,
I've done that. It's funny. I've done that. Oh, so like the last day, like you had to be out by noon on the last day that you were there, and you figured you might be able to stay through the night or the entire day, basically.
well, I didn't real like my flight left on Friday, and I didn't have a place to stay Thursday night, and I kind of figured that out when I was there. So, being fairly polite and not wanting to kind of put anyone out, I just figured, well, whatever. I'm gonna work out late. I'll stay out late. I was at the Slaughterhouse Gym, which is a very very well known powerlifting gym, run by a man by the name of Howlett, who's the strongest guy in Australia. He's built like a refrigerator. So I worked out late there. Cool. Went over, got a bite to eat, and figured I'm just gonna walk to the airport. Like, how far could this be?
Right. Famous last words. Right.
Yeah. So that was probably around 18 miles that I
Oh my
walked,
God.
with about 25 pounds in my pack. And I didn't realize how far this was going to be, but I'm about halfway into it. I'm like, I've committed to this. I've committed to this decision. I'm going to see this through. And the next thing, right? And the next thing I know, I'm walking out on a country road with a full moon lighting me up, and I'm like, there aren't any apex predators here, and I don't think the venomous stuff is going to come bother me on the road.
Right, right. Oh man. So you humped 18 miles? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, in like a pair of blue
Oh
jeans,
man.
and like just not knowing that that's what that was going to be. So my
Fuck,
advice for
man.
anyone that thinks that that's a good idea, it's not a good idea. Don't do that. There, just don't do that.
Right.
There's way better ways to spend 5 hours.
Oh man. Oh, that's great. That is a great story. So this was all at night then? So you left in the evening and you got there at what time?
I I got there. I think it was about 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. I
Oh
finished a good
man, I
workout.
love it.
I pulled a deadlift, a personal best, which was 458 pounds. I
Wow,
pulled on a
nice.
deadlift,
Nice,
which
nice.
was pretty good for me. I was weighing about 180 then. Still am about 180. So that was personal best. Figured I was going to reward myself with a nice lamb dinner actually at a
All
restaurant.
right. All
Right, eat
right.
big, and then yeah, I decided to walk back. So yeah,
That's
I
great.
left there 10:30, 11 at night, and I got there about 2:33 in the morning.
Oh man. So were the plane? You must have been sore as hell on the plane then, right? Just the next day. What was that like? I've lived going immediately from lifting and then an 18-mile hump. I mean, you must have been feeling it, right? The next day.
Yeah, I got back to Brisbane and had my buddy drop me off. So Australia's got tons and tons of these Asian massage parlors,
All right.
and so I tell my buddy, okay, I want to check out one of these massage parlors. He's like, yeah. I was like, no, 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 I actually need a massage. I need some gal that's gonna get in there with her elbows. Like I don't,
Right.
no happy. Like I need a massage. So went to this place and I was like skeptical. No, like at one point she's like up on my back with her knees, and this one was all elbows. It was probably one of the most intense massages I've had in my entire life. But
Oh yeah, no, massages are great. I mean, I used to do them. There's in the city that I live in, there's a training institute for massage therapists, and they offer like the students have a clinic and they sell massages to the public, and it's a very good deal. I used to do it a lot. I don't do it so much anymore, but that's great, Ace. I just think it's funny that that's a good story. That's the kind of stuff that you got to do when you're young. Like you have you just get roped into a project like that. That's great. Did you encounter any animals along the way, or any craziness, or drivers harassing you, or any funny stories come out of that?
well, what I can tell you is people in general, but it seems more specifically Asians, and this isn't being racist. This is what I saw. They don't really seem to understand how to behave around a wild animal.
Yeah.
Um, so, as an example, circling around an emu, and an emu it's a little smaller than an ostrich, and they can kick you and break your leg.
Right.
Or like a kangaroo that is 6 feet high, circling around those things like these are not your dog, they're not your friend's dog, and try to hand feed them and mess with them. And people die every year from kangaroos because on their hind feet, which are very very powerful, they have these three claws, and they get a hold of you and they will stick that claw in. They rip out your iliac or your femoral,
Oh my
and
God. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
people bleed to death. So
Yeah.
that
They're
was
not. Yeah.
really
Yeah.
interesting to watch, where people are just kind of like messing with these things. And I guess it's a little bit of a different situation in Australia. Up in Canada, we have apex predators. In Australia, the things that will kill you typically have venom.
Yeah, insects, like what? Now, when you say apex, you mean like bears, grizzlies, things like that, right? Like actual manhunter, man-eating, types of.
Cougars, mountain lions,
You're,
pumas, which are
right.
apparently all the same thing. A few varieties of wolf, bear, right? A few varieties of bear, like brown bears, black bears, grizzlies. But
Yeah.
even something like a moose. or or an elk or something like that, these are big, powerful animals, and they will make no bones about it. It happens. It happens once in a while where there's some tourists that, um, once again, it's unfortunate, but they think it's a good idea to smear honey on their kids' fingers so the bear can lick it off for a good picture.
Oh my God.
Well, that
A
works about as
bear?
well as yeah, that works about as well
Oh.
as you think it does.
Oh man. Yeah,
Um,
that's just Jesus, that's freaking stupid, man. That's well, I mean, well, bears I would expect that, but I didn't really realize that moose will charge you like they'll so they without any provocations, like if you get in the way of a male moose, he's going to come at you then, right? That's what you're telling me.
it depends on the season. Yeah, so it really depends on the season. Like if they're in the rut or something like that, where they're competing for mates, or you wind up startling them, or they're just in a bad mood. I mean, they have personalities just like we do. So
Yeah.
and how big a moose is like there's a few varieties, but like
Oh, they're big.
at the
Yeah,
shoulder
they're
they could
big.
be easily 6 feet or higher. And
Yeah.
these are an animal like they're an animal that'll dress out at 1,000 pounds of meat. So you're looking at 1,800, 2,000 pounds potentially. Like these are big, powerful animals.
Yeah.
One thing that
Yeah.
they don't tell you that you don't learn until you go to Australia about koalas is
Yeah.
koalas are completely stoned.
Oh, eucalyptus leaves. Yeah, it's an intoxicant, right?
I'm not. I heard two versions. I heard that it winds up behaving the same way as like a catnip or something like that, where it's a drug that works specifically on them. And I also heard that the leaves ferment in their stomach and make alcohol as part of the digestion process.
Right.
But you see
Well,
a
I
picture.
well, well, I know that they live. I mean, I'm right in assuming. I think what I've read is that they live just on the eucalyptus tree, right?
True,
Their diet consists of one food, and that's it.
true. And
Yeah.
somehow, some way, they get they get proper glued off it. So you
Right.
wind up going to a koala sanctuary, and it's absolutely hilarious when like I didn't know that this was the case, and these things are just kind of like sprawled out in a tree. I saw one move, which apparently is a big deal, and kind of climbs down out of a tree, walks up to another tree, leans against it, takes a leak, walks back, scratches its ass, and climbs back up and goes to sleep. Like it,
Wow. Wow.
yeah, really, it was pretty hilarious, but you don't know that until you go there because I never knew that they were stoned all the time. It was pretty amusing.
Well, it sounds like it was a great trip, and I guess you probably didn't have a chance to. I mean, did you bring one of your knives with you there? One of the Delta 2 Alpha products there, or is that not really allowed for the flights? I mean, how does that is that something you do or not do typically?
So when I travel with just a backpack, no checked luggage, carrying a blade is obviously a bit of an issue,
Right.
and I just didn't want to have to deal with it. Also, with Australia and Britain and some other countries, the knife laws are completely different. Like by comparison, Canada and the U.S. Are the Wild West.
As one would expect.
Australia
As
has recently changed their laws, so our knives can be imported there. And I had some people contact me. I verified that when I was
fantastic.
there. Like you can get a Spyderco and stuff like that there. Went through and verified that that was in fact the way it was, but it varies a bit from state to state there. And so
Yeah.
I said, okay, well, sure, I'll ship them over. I can't guarantee what your customs does, but I'll crank these things down so they don't flick open or anything like that, and I'll show you how to make it right later if you need to.
Good.
So we didn't travel with that. One of the products that we have is called the Mark,
Yeah.
and we're getting ready to relaunch it. The initial ones were we went through a few versions. One was made out of ABS plastic, and then we went through and we wanted some brighter color options, so we went with what we call puckboard, but it's a high density polyethylene. Um,
Right.
so shatter resist, like shatterproof. I mean, to get this thing to break you, it would involve you either lighting it on fire, freezing with liquid nitrogen, and hitting it with a hammer.
Now, for those that don't know, Ace, the mark, which I have, you've actually given me one, which I appreciate. It's actually a self-defense tool. It's almost like a plastic brass knuckles almost. That has a multi. It's a multitasking tool. It can be used for a variety of different things. How would you describe it? I mean, what you give me what your impression of what of how would you describe it?
The mark comes from the name comes from that it's shaped like a question mark. We initially designed it as a purse hanger for women. Uh,
Right.
the ones of high density polyethylene will hold 40 pounds. I actually have a video of me holding this thing, holding up a kettlebell with it. And so,
Wow.
initially it was for women to hang their purse off the end of a table or things like this. And then doing a lot of traveling, um, I always found that okay, I always picked the bathroom stall that had the hook taken off of it. So if I need to hang up my jacket or my laptop bag, or you're a big scary strong man, and I'm just gonna wait till you drop trow to steal your stuff, right? I'll just pull it out from
Right.
under the floor, and then now I have
Right.
depending on your field, the contents of your laptop could be worth millions, right? You could have some very very interesting designs I want to get a hold of. So just going through and having it for that for those purposes. Before the podcast, I was at a restaurant having supper with my father, and on my way out, going to the bathroom, and there's no hook there, so just took it, hung it over the hinge, and was able to hang up my jacket. But we're finding people using these things for all sorts of stuff, a tablet stand and things like that, so you can go through and use a cantilever, prop it up so it holds the tablet, and uh, seen
Right.
people hook onto a dog leash so they can walk their dog short, but if they need to, if it's a working dog, they can go through and just uh, go through and quickly release it and send the thing out to do what it needs to do. It's strong enough for guys
Nice.
to hang up their plate carriers and stuff like that. So when they're over there and they don't want some type of scorpion or fire ant or something like that in it, it's really really neat.
Yeah.
Getting a lot of
Yeah.
different uses, and we keep finding people using it for different things. Opening bottles.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I could see that. Yeah. And you guys offer these at your website, right? The delta2alpha.com, right?
Absolutely. We're getting ready to relaunch them there'll be some out of carbon fiber. There'll be some out of G10, which is a silica-based fiber composite. The real advantage of the G10 over the carbon fiber is you can get it in a whole host of different colors. You can get it in red or pink or yellow or whatever you're into. The
Yeah.
G10 ones we haven't tested. We haven't been able to break them yet. It should be able to hang your body weight, and I assume you're probably about 200 pounds.
Yeah, I'm probably closer to where you are. I think right now I'm about between 175, 180, somewhere around there.
Nice and
Um,
belt.
yeah, yeah. So, but no, I think it's pretty innovative. I like stuff like that because it doesn't look like anything you would think of as a self-defense. It just looks like a piece of, you know, plastic or some sort of implement or some sort of design tool or something. So, but that's the type of stuff that's useful.
You were
But
you were asking about some of the gear and things like that I like to travel. In the article, I didn't notice, but I did read it a couple of days ago. One of the things I'm big on is having things that are multi-use. So
yeah,
the mark has a lot of advantages and a lot of things that I use it for regularly that's not it as a weapon. And
yeah,
so the fact that I can use it as a weapon, that's great. Just like there's a pen out there that I travel with. It's called a Zebra F701, and it's a plain stainless steel uh, ballpoint click pen. And so they're like 10 or 12 bucks, and it's a pen. But any of the people selling the tactical pens and stuff like that, and some of these things get up there for like $200.
yeah,
Like there's some seriously expensive tactical pens out there. Well, a Zebra F701, solid stainless steel. Um, so you can go through and first of all, it writes really nicely. But secondly, you can go through and use it for something else. So I'm really big on having some mileage for my weight or some mileage for my bulk.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I like that euphemism, a tactical pen. It's almost it's just has it conjures up very interesting images.
Well,
But
you're a word guy, right? So what does tactical mean, right? We're working towards a specific objective.
yeah,
So it could be writing a thank you note, right? Making somebody feel properly thanked was the objective. The word
right.
tactical has kind of come to mean nothing now.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. But I mean, it sounds like it was a great trip, and sounds like you got a lot out of it. And I guess you'll be going back probably, at some point in the future, I would imagine. And hopefully, whetted the appetite for further explorations down under. And when you do come back, you'll have to share those with us as well. Um, but we're just about running out of time here, Ace. So I want to thank you for joining us and sharing a little bit of your experiences about your Australia trip and your gear advice. And I guess we will visit again soon.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
All right, Ace. Folks, this is, I'll let Ace Johnson go here, the co owner of Delta 2 Alpha, the knife manufacturing company, and he just shared his stories of his Australia trip with us, and we'll hope to have him back soon. Ace, thanks for having been with us.
It's always a pleasure, Quintus.
And I think that will wrap up our podcast here today at Fortress of the Mind. I appreciate you joining us. Hope you've enjoyed my discussion with Ace Johnson at delta2alpha.com. And until next time, I'm Quintus Curtius. Good night.